Bonjour tout le monde. Aujourd'hui, on va parler d'un sujet très important. Il s'agit des questions formelles, informelles ou écrites ou orales. Okay? You might have seen this already in 102, but we're going to give you a lot more to work with in 111. All right, so let's start with question informelle orale. And what we mean by that is whatever you're going to be using in a familiar setting. Okay, so you'll see, right? So when we have this type of situation, you'll see that it will differ a lot, as you can tell already, from the formal one. Okay, so first of all, let's take a look at some example. Je mets quoi comme nom? Tu veux faire quoi? Tu lis souvent mes BD? Tu es aussi dessinateur. So right off the bat, we see that they're basically just normal sentences, right? With your subject, your verb, and following you with your complement and whatnot. And then just followed by point d'interrogation. Okay, again, you have to play with your intonation. Je mets quoi comme nom, right? Because it's not je mets quoi comme nom, like you're just not talking to someone, you're asking a question. But the way that you need to do it is very important if you're doing, of course, informel and oral. So you're going to be starting with your subject, okay? You'll see that in red. Followed by your verbs, okay? Followed by your mot interrogatif, okay? In this case, it'll just be the first two, okay? You will see that most of the time, if you remember from 102, if it is a formal question, the mot interrogatif will be at the beginning of the sentence. But because we are very informal right now, we're going to put it after. Now, in the case that you don't need a mot interrogatif, like for instance, you read my cartoon, right? You don't need you read what for my cartoon, right? It doesn't really make sense in the sense that you don't need that interrogation word. In this case, you just go pretty simple with your subject followed by the verb and then followed by the rest of the sentence, or complément if we want to be fancy, right? Complément, it could be COD, COE, or just the rest of the sentence. Now, when it gets a bit fancier, like I like to say. So, let's take a look at the first two examples. Comment cette idée vous est-elle venue? Pourquoi la France est-elle un pays charmant? Now, this little scenario here might be new to you. Remember when we have question formelle, you'll see that we are inverting the pronom and the verb, right? For the first one that we've seen, this particular one, we just had, the subject and or the pronom and then the verb. We didn't invert it. But when it comes to the formel, we are inverting it. Okay? Another thing that I wanted to bring your attention to is the addition of the subject, right? We have the pronom, but what is this doing here? Most likely the reason why we're adding the noun, right, or the subject is because it gives it more information. If I just said comment vous est-elle venue, I'm not sure what are you talking about, right? Are we talking about a person? Are we not talking about idée, right? So if it actually makes your sentence less ambiguous. So in that case, whenever you want to make your sentence more clear, you always have to have the noun that you're referring to, and then you add the pronom that it corresponds to. Okay, so let's take a look. Comment cette idée vous est-elle venue? You're going to start with your mot interrogatif, followed by the subject, okay, whatever you're talking about, followed by the verb, followed by the pronoun of the subject, and then continue on with your sentence. Okay? Same thing here, you're going to be starting with your mot interrogatif, followed by the subject, followed by the verb, followed by the pronom that it corresponds to, un pays charmant. Again here, if I just said pourquoi est-elle un pays charmant, you could literally be talking about any country right now, I would have no idea. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, another way to ask the question, qui a été votre professeur favori quand vous étiez jeune? Okay, note that whenever you have a mot interrogatif que Q apostrophe, qui, the variety of quel. So it could be masculin, pluriel, féminin, you name it. You will never need that pronom personnel. Okay, so I will never say qui a été votre acteur favori or qui votre acteur favori a été-il. It does not work. So remember this. Every time you have these variation, you never need a pronom personnel that will describe further your subject. Okay, so it's pretty similar than the first one, except that you will not need a pronom personnel with your subject. Okay, same thing here. We don't need, like, we already know who we're referring to, who our subject is. Comment dit-on charmant en anglais? Right? So here we have our mot interrogatif, our verb, followed by the pronom sujet, right? So we are talking, we are saying, how do we say charmant in English? So same thing here. And remember, like we've mentioned, I believe in class, if you have two vowel touching, it gives them a shock. Literally, it gives them a shock, all right? So you always need that trait d'union, T, trait d'union, because it makes it better to say it, right? If I said pourquoi parle on, it's not a good pronunciation. You always say pourquoi parle-t-on. In this case, we don't need the T because this is a consonant and this is a vowel. So again, we have our mot interrogatif, the verb, followed by the T, followed by your pronoun, and the rest of the sentence. So to reiterate, the reason why we do not need here the sujet, right, or the noun, is because it's already pretty evident what we're talking about, all right? So we're just asking how do we say something in English, or why do we talk about the French culture in this course, okay? Another one that kind of relates to this one, okay, this is basically going to give you a yes or no answer. This is a bit more open-ended. La France est-elle un pays charmant? So for this one, you don't need to start your sentence with a mot interrogatif. You go right away with your sujet, your verb, your pronom that talks about the sujet, and then the rest of your sentence, okay? I know it's a lot to take in, but I promise you it will make your writing a lot better, especially if it entails asking questions. Moving on. Now, I didn't see anything pertaining to this particular topic on the internet, so I'm just going to go with your cahier d'activité since we're doing the one in the book in class. So for this one, this is very good. So please feel free to pause this video and write it down, and then you can compare after. This is very good because it kind of makes you think about the order of the mot interrogatif, your sujet, your verb, you name it, okay? So let's go with the first one. Un pays spécial, la France pour les BD est-elle? And what I like about it, it doesn't give you a capital so that you know what goes first, okay? So it seems like for that one, we have pronom and then we have the subject. So I'm going to go, and I don't have any mot interrogatif. I'm going to go with the last one that we've seen. All right, so let me find my text box. All right, so I'm gonna go with la France. Whoops. Est-elle? And yes, it is a question formelle because we're using inversion. Un pays spécial pour les BD. Okay, so we have our subject followed by the verb, followed by the elle, right, corresponding to the subject, and then the rest of it, right? Again, this is basically asking you for a yes or no answer. The next one, here we go. We have our mot interrogatif, and then we have something weird going on here, right? It seems like we're using il y a almost. So what we're going to do, let me go with my text box again. So, pourquoi y a-t-il? I know. Every time you use inversion, please, please, please add your hyphens. Deux auteurs. Le dessinateur, comment il le nom des personnages choisis? Encore une fois, on a notre mot interrogatif. On va commencer par cela. Voilà. Comment le dessinateur choisit-il le nom des personnages? Okay, so that will be number 3. I'm sorry if it's all over the place here. Okay, so we have the mot interrogatif. We have our sujet, right? Again, if I just said comment choisit-il le nom des personnages, it could mean a variety of things, okay? Followed by the verb, remember inversion if it's formal, followed by the pronom that destinateur corresponds to and the rest of the sentence. Okay, so that would be this one. Rencontrez-vous quand le scénariste allait? Encore une fois, on a notre mot interrogatif. Of course, we're going to start with that. So, quand allez-vous? Again, in version, you need your hyphen. Rencontrer. Quand allez-vous rencontrer le scénariste? Ok. Cette série de BD remportée combien de fois? You have your D, so that tells us we're going to have 2 vowels exploding. Un prix a-t-elle? All right, so let's just keep it safe. Let's start with the combien de fois cette série, right? I need my subject de BD a-t-elle remporté un prix? Okay. All right, so it wasn't too bad. Elle, les BD, votre genre de lecture préféré sont. Okay, so this one, we don't have any more interrogative, so it kind of tells us we're going to be starting with the sujet, right? Remember with this one as well. So I'm going to go with les BD. Oopsies. Les BD sont-elles votre genre de lecture préféré? Okay. One thing that you want to take note of is les BD is already, we know that it's féminin pluriel, so it kind of gives us the elle away here, that elle would be corresponding to the subject, okay? All right, so I know it's a lot to take in, but I promise you will help you in the future. How are we going to be testing that on the final? We're not sure. We might just be doing multiple choice, so depending on the question, the answers will reflect whether or not you have mastered the ordering of it. So that's something to keep in mind of. Alright, donc j'espère que ça a été utile et merci infiniment et à plus tard.